Rothschild family. In short, this family owns most of the world. They own each and every central bank. They own the Federal Reserve. They control the International Monetary Fund. They control the World Health Organization. They financed both parties of every war since the war against Napoleon. They financed the Bolshevik Revolution. They financed Hitler and the Nazis. They financed the production of IBM's punching machines for an efficient prosecution of the Jews by the Nazis. And they had equities in Exxon and IG Farben, the dealers of Zyklon B gas for the Nazi gas chambers. The estimated net worth of the Rothschild family is $500 billion. When you have that much money and power, you can poke the chest of the Crown Prince of Great Britain like he's your bitch. The Rothschild family was incredibly powerful. They were direct descendants from the Khazarian nobility that had fled Russia in around 1000 AD. You bet they had many original documents and protocols in their possession. Could those protocols be the original source text for the 20th century Protocols of Zion as published in Russia? If that is the case, you can rest assured that Khazar was altered in Jew, Khazarian in Jewish, etc. The perfect text that would come in very handy as a trigger for anti-Semitism in the Russian Revolution and both world wars to turn the Jews into the ultimate scapegoats. The more we studied this subject, the more we came to realize how the Jews had been used by the Khazars throughout the ages to receive the blame of everything. Everything that went wrong, everything the high-ranked Khazars did to suppress the people, everything was blamed on the Jews. After all, for the outside world, the Khazars were Jews, remember?
There's literally nothing that Israel won't do in the name of vengeance and in the name of continuing Zionism. For some people, the takeaway is as long as they're not literally putting people in ovens, as long as they're not doing exactly what the Nazis did, that somehow that's okay. It's actually not okay. Never again doesn't mean never again in the exact same way that the Nazis did it. If that's your takeaway from the Holocaust, you really need to look at yourself and do some soul searching. I'm Jewish. I lost members of my family during the Holocaust, and the truth is, Israel does not represent me. Israel does not make me safer. In fact, it puts me and all Jews in greater danger, because as Israel commits these crimes against humanity and live streams them, and in some cases gleefully live streams them, we've seen soldiers doing this, Israel doing that and saying it's in the name of Jews, that will create anti-Semitism. The idea that Israel represents all Jews is in itself an anti-Semitic idea. The dual loyalty trope says that all Jews are a monolith and we're all loyal to Israel and we can't be trusted to be loyal to other governments, regardless of where we live. That is really what Israel is leaning into. And you have anti-Semites and then the government of Israel, AIPAC and the ADL, all making the same argument, which I think really shows you the dangers and the inherent anti-Semitism of Zionism. People like to claim that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitic. Well, it's actually not, given that you literally have more Christian Zionists in the world than you have Jewish Zionists. This particular Christian form of Zionism wants Jews to go back to Israel so we can provoke the end times, Armageddon. All Jews except a very lucky 400 who accept Christ as their Lord and Savior burn for all of eternity. So these are the allies. All these cancel culture warriors who talk about right-wingers being canceled are very silent, interestingly enough, when it comes to critics of Israel, who are probably the most canceled people of all. If you're a Palestinian critic of Israel, you're very, very, very canceled. If you're a Jewish critic of Israel, you're less canceled, but you're still canceled. You're just canceled as a self-loathing Jew as opposed to an anti-Semite, which is a significant difference. I mean, I was fired by a network for saying that Israel is an apartheid state. So my being Jewish didn't really protect me. And of course, there's a huge bias in the way that corporate media reports on Israel-Palestine. They're very clear when Russia does something. Russia bombs, Russia strikes, Russia kills. When it's Israel, it's often Palestinians killed in attack, Palestinians dead after bombing. We even know that networks and outlets instruct their writers and reporters not to use certain words like genocide, not even to use the word Palestine. In fact, the reporting by the New York Times on the alleged mass rape used by Hamas was so bad that they had to cancel a podcast that they were going to do about it because there was so little to back it up. Now, on the other hand, you have countless stories and allegations of Israelis raping Palestinians. That got totally ignored. It's really fascinating that we hear time and time again about the 40 beheaded Israeli babies, even though there was no evidence of that. And we do have evidence of actually beheaded babies, children with their heads blown off. I mean, we saw a child literally shredded. Various representatives of the Israeli government are never asked about that. They're never asked to condemn Israel's violence. They're never asked to condemn Israel's terrorism. There was a doctor who was tortured to death. If you don't already feel disturbed by the images of Palestinians or the stories of Palestinians, the story of Hind Rajab, who was left in a car to die when she was begging for help, and Israeli soldiers shot up the car and shot up the ambulance trying to rescue this girl. If that doesn't haunt you, I would really urge you to imagine this happening to a Jewish child during the Holocaust. I think that Jews should understand this, if anything, more than other people, because of our history of being targeted, of being otherized, of being compared to vermin, of attempted extermination, of genocide and ethnic cleansing, and of the world looking the other way. That is something that we have to remember. That happened to us. We can't let that happen to other people. That's not justice. That's not how we honor those killed in the Holocaust. Everything that Israel tells you about its founding, about its history, and about its role today is a lie. Some people think, oh, Israel was founded for Holocaust survivors, and then it got greedy and took over too much land and ruined its founding mission, which was to be a safe haven for Jews. The truth is, it was founded on ethnic cleansing. It was not a utopia. I think it's really eye-opening to look at the actual language of early Zionists, because they were calling their banks colonial trusts. They were talking about how natives always resist colonists. In other words, it's not just critics of Zionism who describe Zionism as colonial, it was the Zionists themselves. Israeli society really had a lot of disdain for Holocaust survivors. So they did something very disgusting. They both weaponized the Holocaust to justify their extermination of Palestinians, and they mistreated Holocaust survivors. In fact, they even referred to them as sapon, which means soap in Hebrew. And that was because there was a myth that Nazis turned Jewish bodies into soap. It's not true, but that was a myth. And the important thing is that people thought that was true, and they thought it would be appropriate to call survivors by that name. Israel wanted to create a new Jew that was armed, that was working the land. They were ashamed of the Jews who were killed. They thought that they went to their slaughter like sheep. They were ashamed of Jews who were religious, Jews who were scholars, Jews who were also cosmopolitan. They really did, ironically, internalize a lot of anti-Semitism. There were Zionist bombings in the Middle East that were used to scare people into emigrating out of Iraq, out of Morocco, and into Israel. That's how little they cared about Jewish people. They bombed synagogues in order to get people to leave the Middle East and go to Israel, where they would be mistreated, which is what happened to Mizrahi Jews. Some were basically put into camps. They rejected Yiddish, which was spoken by Eastern European and diasporic Jews, and they also rejected Arabic, which was spoken by Mizrahi Jews of the Middle East. Yiddish is an amazing language, and it's dying out, and the reason it's dying out is because Israel chose to create modern Hebrew, which no one spoke, and they had a lot of disdain for a lot of Jewish culture. So Israel has always been a racist project in many ways, against Palestinians, but even against Jews themselves. And it's been an anti-Semitic project as well. Not only is Judaism obviously much older than Zionism, but there was Christian Zionism from the very beginning, and that was fueled by anti-Semitism and the desire to get Jews out of Europe. Lord Balfour of the Balfour Declaration was a major anti-Semite. Zionism actually requires anti-Semitism to justify its existence. So for Zionists, they don't want to defeat anti-Semitism. They want to use it to strengthen the state of Israel. It's also true to remember that this is not a conflict about religion or culture. Jews and Christians and Muslims lived in peace and harmony in many areas of the Middle East for centuries. This is about power. This is about land. This goes back to resources. This goes back to the West wanting to have a foothold in the Middle East. This is not about religion. Jewish anti-Zionism has existed since Zionism. A lot of Jews opposed Zionism because they, I would say rightly, predicted it would create anti-Semitism. There's a very rich radical history of Jewish internationalism. During the Spanish Civil War, which many people see as the dry run for World War II, among all the international brigades, so all the volunteers who left their countries to fight in a war against fascism, the most common language spoken was Yiddish, which speaks to this tradition. If we look at so many struggles like the civil rights movement in the United States, there were lots of Jews involved in that. Jewish people were overrepresented in that movement. If you look at South Africa, some of the most active anti-apartheid activists were Jewish. That's the tradition that I'm proud to be part of, not a tradition which weaponizes trauma, tragedy, and the Holocaust to kill more people. Israel is unsustainable. There's no coming back from this. Something new needs to be created. Jews can live side by side with Muslims and Christians in Palestine, just as they have for centuries. If coexistence is so impossible, and if anti-Semitism is so impossible to fight against, how is it that Jews live in Germany today? Germany was where anti-Semitism turned into the Holocaust, and yet somehow Jews are able to live in Germany in safety. But we're supposed to believe that they can't live in Palestine in safety? Palestine is not the country that created Adolf Hitler. Palestine is not the country that created the Holocaust. The biggest threat to Jewish safety is not a free Palestine, it's Zionism.
What exactly is in those protocols? Precisely what we see in our modern-day world. The protocols are a description of all the possible ways the cabal used to control, manipulate, brainwash and dominate the Goyim, the ordinary people, the non-Khazars. Here they come, and you better hold on to your seat. Mind you, we narrowed it down for you, as there are not only 24 protocols, but also 293 paragraphs. We filtered them all down to the most essential ones, and in some cases, slightly altered the syntax of the sentences, so that the old use of words became more understandable. Each paragraph number will be shown on screen in case you wish to do your own research. First of all, their disdain, their contempt is shocking. The mob is savage and displays its savagery at every opportunity. The moment the mob seizes freedom in its hands, it turns to anarchy, which is the highest degree of savagery. We are interested in killing out the Goyim. Our power is in the chronic shortness of food and physical weakness of the worker, because that implies he is made the slave of our will. We shall move the mobs by want, envy and hatred, and with their hands we shall wipe out all those who hinder us on our way. The Goyim are a flock of sheep, and we are their wolves. If we've been able to bring them to such a pitch of stupid blindness, is that not amazingly clear proof of the degree to which the mind of the Goyim is undeveloped in comparison with our mind? This is mainly which guarantees our success. The presidents are mere puppets on their strings. We replace the ruler of the republics by a caricature of a government, by a president taken from the mob, from the midst of our puppet creatures, our slaves. We shall arrange elections in favor of such presidents who have in their past some dark, undiscovered secret. This will make them trustworthy agents for the accomplishment of our plans out of fear of exposure and from the natural desire of everyone who has attained power, namely the privileges, advantages and honor connected with the office of president. We shall take the right to propose new laws or make changes in existing laws, as the president is only a puppet in our hands. Liberals and Masons are relentlessly used. The part played by the liberals, utopian dreamers, will be finally played out when our government is acknowledged. Till such time they will continue to do us good service. Therefore, we shall continue to direct their minds to all sorts of vain conceptions of fantastic theories, new and progressive. Until we come into our kingdom, we shall create and multiply Masonic lodges in all the countries of the world, absorb into them all who are prominent in public activity. For these lodges are our principal intelligence office and means of influence. All these lodges we shall bring under one central administration, known to us alone, and to all others absolutely unknown, which will be composed of our learned elders. The most secret political plots will be known to us and fall under our guiding hands on the very day of their conception. Among the members of these lodges will be almost all the agents of international and national police, since their service is irreplaceable to us, as they have their own measures with the insubordinate. The class of people who willingly enter into secret societies are those who live by their reason, careerists, mostly light-minded people, with whom we shall have no difficulty in dealing and in using. But if there should arise in its midst a plot, then at the head of that plot will be no other than one of our most trusted servants. The goyim enter the lodges out of curiosity or in the hope to get a nibble at the public pie, and some of them in order to obtain a hearing before the public for their impracticable and groundless fantasies. They thirst for success and applause, of which we are remarkably generous. You cannot imagine to what extent the wisest of the goyim can be brought to a state of unconscious naivete in their arrogance, and how easy it is to take the heart out of them by the slightest ill success, though it be nothing more than the stoppage of the applause they had, and to reduce them to a slavish submission for the sake of winning a renewal of success. These tigers in appearance have the souls of sheep, and the wind blows freely through their heads. We execute Masons in ways that none but the Brotherhood can ever have a suspicion of, not even the victims themselves of our death sentence. They all die when required, as if from a normal kind of illness. Knowing this, even the Brotherhood dare not protest. By such methods, we have plucked out of the midst of Masonry the very root of protest against us. The press will be their golden tool to steer the mob. Through the press we have gained the power to influence while remaining ourselves in the shade. Not a single announcement will reach the public without our control. All news items are received by a few agencies. These agencies will be entirely ours and will give publicity only to what we dictate to them. All our newspapers will be of all possible complexions: aristocratic, republican, revolutionary, even anarchical. Those fools who will think they are repeating the opinion of a newspaper of their own camp will be repeating our opinion, or any opinion that seems desirable for us. The people shall be distracted with empty words and broken promises. We shall raise the rate of wages, which, however, will not bring any advantage to the workers, for at the same time we shall produce a rise in prices of the basic necessities of life, claiming that it arises from the decline of agriculture and cattle breeding. There is another reason why they will close their eyes, for we shall keep promising them to give back all the liberties we've taken away as soon as we have quelled the enemies of peace and tamed all parties. We shall distract them with amusements, games, pastimes, passions, people's palaces. Through the press we shall propose competitions in art, in sport, in all kinds. These interests will finally distract their minds. All layers of society will be infiltrated. It is from us that the all-engulfing terror proceeds. We have in our service persons of all opinions, of all doctrines, restorating monarchists, demagogues, socialists, communists, and utopian dreamers. We have harnessed them all to the task of drilling away the last remnants of authority. By these acts, all states are in torture and ready to sacrifice everything for peace and tranquility. But we will not give them peace until they openly acknowledge our international supergovernment and with submissiveness. We have got our hands into the administration of the law, into the conduct of elections, into the press, into liberty of the person, but principally into education and training as being the cornerstones of a free existence. The administrators whom we shall choose from among the public, with strict regard to their capacity for obedience, will not be persons trained in the arts of government, and will therefore easily become pawns in our game, in the hands of men of learning and genius, who will be their advisers, specialists bred and reared from early childhood to rule the affairs of the whole world. We shall surround our government with a whole world of economists. Around us will be a constellation of bankers, industrialists, capitalists, and the main thing, millionaires, because everything will be settled by the question of figures. Who will ever suspect that all these people were stage managed by us, according to a political plan which no one has so much as guessed at in the course of many centuries? The ultimate threat. You may say that the Goyim will rise upon us, arms in hand, if they guess what is going on before the time comes. But in the West we have against this a maneuver of such appalling terror that the very stoutest hearts quail. The undergrounds, metropolitans, those subterranean corridors, which, before the time comes, will be driven under all the capitals, and from where the capitals will be blown into the air with all their organizations and archives. They will cause mayhem. We have stirred up every form of enterprise. We have armed all parties. We have set up authority as a target for every ambition. Of states we have made gladiatorial arenas where a lot of confused issues contend. A little more, and disorders and bankruptcy will be universal. This hatred will be further magnified by the effects of economic crises, which will stop dealing on the exchanges and bring industry to a standstill. Universal economic crises whereby we shall throw upon the streets whole mobs of workers simultaneously in all the countries of Europe. These mobs will rush to shed the blood of those whom they have envied from their cradles in the simplicity of their ignorance, and whose property they will then be able to loot. Remember the French Revolution? The secrets of its preparations are well known to us, for it was wholly the work of our hands. There will be a transition period. In order to put public opinion into our hands, we must bring it into a state of bewilderment by giving so many contradictory opinions that the Goyim will lose their heads in the labyrinth and come to see that the best thing is to have no opinion of any kind in political matters. In order for the people to become accustomed to obedience, it is necessary to give lessons of humility and therefore to reduce the production of articles of luxury. We shall re-establish small master production, which will mean laying a mine under the private capital of manufacturers. In the resulting chaos, people will fail to understand one another. It will discourage any kind of personal initiative, which might hinder our affair in any degree. There is nothing more dangerous than personal initiative. If it has genius behind it, such initiative can do more harm to us than can be done by millions of people among whom we have sown discord. We must so direct the education of the Goyim communities that whenever they come upon a matter requiring initiative, they may drop their hands in despairing impotence. We shall so wear down the Goyim that they will offer us international power that will enable us without any violence gradually to absorb all the state forces of the world and to form a super government. In place of the rulers of today, we shall set up a super government administration. Its hands will reach out in all directions, and its organization will be of such colossal dimensions that it cannot fail to subdue all the nations of the world. The moment of the recognition of our despot will come when the peoples, utterly wearied by the incompetence of their rulers, a matter which we shall arrange for, will cry out, "Away with them, and give us one king over all the earth who will unite us and annihilate the causes of disorders, who will give us peace and quiet, which we cannot find under our rulers and representatives." Then will the mob exalt us and bear us up in their hands in a unanimous triumph of hopes and expectations. Voting, which we have made the instrument which will set us on the throne of the world, will then have served its purpose and will play its part for the last time. The new kingdom will be blood-curdling. We shall create an intensified centralization of government in order to grip in our hands all the forces of the community. We shall regulate all the actions of the political life of our subjects by new laws. These laws will withdraw one by one all liberties of the Goyim, and our kingdom will be distinguished by a despotism of such magnificent proportions that we can wipe out any Goyim who oppose us by deed or word. The word freedom brings out the communities of men to fight against every kind of force, every kind of authority, even against God and the laws of nature. For this reason, when we come into our kingdom, we shall have to erase this word, freedom, from the lexicon of life, as implying a principle of brute force which turns mobs into bloodthirsty beasts. Freedom is the right to do that which the law allows. All freedom will thus be in our hands. In our programs, 1/3 of our subjects will keep the rest under observation from a sense of duty, on the principle of volunteer service to the state. It will then be no disgrace to be a spy and an informer, but a merit. When we at last definitely come into our kingdom by the aid of coup d'etat, prepared everywhere for one and the same day, we shall make it our task to see that plots against us shall no longer exist. With this purpose we shall slay without mercy all who take arms to oppose our coming into our kingdom. Every kind of new institution of anything like a secret society will be punished with death. Those now in existence are known to us, serve us, and have served us. But we shall disband them and send them into exile to continents far removed from Europe. In this way we shall proceed with those Goy Masons who know too much. Those we may spare will be kept in constant fear of exile from Europe as the center of our rule. One authority will be glorious because it will be all-powerful. Our authority will be the crown of order, and in that is included the whole happiness of man. We, the lawgivers, shall execute judgment and sentence. We shall slay and we shall spare. We rule by force of will, and the weapons in our hands are limitless ambitions, burning greediness, merciless vengeance, hatred and malice. Resolutions of our government will be final, without appeal. Judges decide as we dictate them. When the time of our overt rule comes, all our laws will be brief, plain, stable, without any kind of interpretations, so that anyone will be in a position to know them perfectly. The main feature is submission to orders, and this principle will be carried to a grandiose height. Criminals will be arrested at the first, more or less, well-grounded suspicion. It cannot be allowed that out of fear of a possible mistake, an opportunity should be given to escape to persons suspected of a crime, for in these matters we shall be literally merciless. We shall re-educate the universities in a new direction. Their officials and professors will be prepared by detailed secret programs of action and will be so placed as to be wholly dependent upon the government. We shall replace the study of ancient history with a study of the program of the future. We shall erase from the memory of men all facts of previous centuries which are undesirable to us, and leave only those which depict all the errors of the government of the Goyim. We shall abolish every kind of freedom of instruction. It is indispensable for us to undermine all faith, to tear out of the mind of the Goyim the very principle of God and Spirit, and to replace them with arithmetical calculations and material needs. When we come into our kingdom, it will be undesirable for us that there should exist any other religion than ours of the one God with whom our destiny is bound up by our position as the chosen. We must therefore sweep away all other forms of belief. Our preaching of the religion of Moses has brought all the peoples of the world into subjection to us. Our philosophers will discuss all the shortcomings of the various beliefs of the Goyim, but no one will ever bring under discussion our faith from its true point of view, since this will be fully learned by none save ours, who will never dare to betray its secrets. Freedom of the press, the right of association, freedom of conscience, the voting principle must disappear forever from the memory of man and undergo a radical alteration the day after the promulgation of the new constitution. What we want is that from the first moment of its promulgation, while the peoples of the world are still stunned by the accomplished fact of the revolution, still in a condition of terror and uncertainty, they should recognize once and for all that we are so strong, so superabundantly filled with power, that in no case shall we take any account of them. And so far from paying any attention to their opinions or wishes, we are ready and able to crush with irresistible power all expression or manifestation thereof at every moment and in every place, that we have seized at once everything we wanted and shall in no case divide our power with them. Then in fear and trembling they will close their eyes to everything and be content to await what will be the end of it all. We've been leading the peoples from one disenchantment to another, so that in the end they will turn also from us in favor of that King Despot of the blood of Zion, whom we are preparing for the world. The new king, the chosen one. This chosen one of God is chosen from above, to demolish the senseless forces moved by instinct and not reason, by brutishness and not humaneness. These forces now triumph in manifestations of robbery and every kind of violence under the mask of principles of freedom and rights. They have overthrown all forms of social order to erect on the ruins the throne of the King of the Jews. But their part will be played out the moment he enters into his kingdom. Then it will be necessary to sweep them away from his path. When the King of Israel sets upon his sacred head the crown offered to him by Europe, he will become patriarch of the world. This king will be the real Pope of the universe, the patriarch of the international church.